Hey, this morning, if you brought a Bible or if there's one in front of you, we will be spending all of our time in 2 Samuel chapters 11 and 12. And those two chapters have an incredible message, and I think it's very eye-opening to what happens there that we often glaze over. I have this belief. I believe no one wakes up one morning and decides to be stupid. I'm dead serious. Who do you know that wakes up and says, hey, today would be a great day to be stupid? Maybe a 13-year-old. I don't know. Even then, it took some thinking. But I have this belief that bad decisions develop over time, usually. There's like a process in life, and it works, and it goes, and suddenly it happens. There's a formula I often apply to my business life or things, or even, when you try to get in shape and lose some weight and eat healthy, usually that's really discouraging before it's encouraging. Has anyone ever noticed that? Okay, so I have had to change my mindset because I often want to see something fast. And I don't want to use a fat blocker pill where you take it and somehow fat comes out the other end. I just don't believe that makes perfect science. So, I've started thinking, all right, life is really more like this. It's more like gradually, and then suddenly the result happens. And usually I have found that, if not always, I might say, in my life to be true. For instance, have you ever tried to save money? Oh my goodness. It seems like forever before you have anything, right? And then suddenly you look at the bank account and you're like, wow, there's actually some money in there. And it's that way. For instance, I love it now that I'm actually trying to be healthy. There are more days it's discouraging than it's actually exciting, I wake up most mornings and go, yep, I'm still carrying that fat. No one else does that? At least one person. Or, there's the times in business where you really, if you're business-minded, you often think, I'd really like to try to get a business to a next level. Not always sure what next level is, but it's the next something, okay? And so you do all of these things over and over and over again, and before you know it, I am calling my wife saying, this doesn't work. And then I hang up, and guess what? Two new leads come in. Because it does. It's just not the way we expect things to work. We expect if I put it in the microwave, I'm going to eat it in 30 seconds. If I do one thing, I should get this. It's kind of like this. We live in a society where we expect to give 5% to get something like 200%. Have you ever noticed that? Okay, well, take that philosophy into just how we live everyday life, and I want you to think about bad decisions. No matter what it is, it's a gradually. Have you ever noticed how tax season is this way? Gradually, it's April 15th. Yeah, and you're up till midnight. You ever notice that, right? Okay, so many things in life are like that. There's the positive value to that, but I want you to know that bad decisions, I believe, happen that way too. The crazy life, if you would, happens like that. Gradually, and suddenly you wake up one day and say, what is this? Am I crazy? You probably are. Okay? So if we keep that in our mind and we keep moving forward, and for this morning, I kind of want to put crazy in a context of spiritual, because I'm going to refer to this as a crazy life all morning long. But if we think of it in terms of a spiritual life, it's kind of the equivalent is when I learn to speak again. Once it's kind of the equivalent. I just passed 5th grade again. All right, so it's kind of the equivalent of this, is the crazy life is kind of like the sin life, all right? You're making decisions that you blatantly know are not in line with what God, with what Jesus would display in his life. It just doesn't match up. But that's a crazy life. That's just a crazy life. And the crazy life doesn't happen like this. It's usually sudden. It's not suddenly. It's gradually, suddenly. I also believe this. Maybe you do too. I believe success leaves clues. Meaning that if I want to do something successfully, and what I mean by that is the right thing, I can often look at something in the past and see that they did something and it got the result. For instance, Dave Ramsey's a great example. Even though some days I just don't like Dave Ramsey. Maybe you share that. But the truth is success leaves clues. Dave Ramsey is not broke living in a van down by the river. He's not, all right? He actually is doing quite well. All right, I want you to think about, whatever you think about Tiger Woods in his normal everyday life, Tiger Woods is not a broken down golfer. He's a really good golfer. So if you want to learn how to be a good golfer, you got to look at Tiger Woods' schedule. He does the same thing over and over and over again. Now, 4 hours of putting every day, that sounds like watching paint dry to me. But that's what Tiger Woods does. Success leaves clues. Whether it be you want to be a good golfer, you want to improve your financial position, or how about this? If you want to improve your spiritual life, the Bible is full of people where they had success and it leaves clues. There's something I want you to know, though. Crazy leaves clues too. It does. And it's like we live in this world where we pretend we don't know what crazy really looks like. Isn't it true? Well, this morning, I hate to dispel it all, but we're going to find out that crazy leaves clues, and you can avoid the crazy life. And we're going to be talking about David. You know, David really is somebody, going Old Testament, back to 2 Samuel. David is somebody who had the best and the worst in life. He's kind of a paradox of an individual. He is the man after God's heart. But he is also an adulterer, a murderer, a liar, and we can go down the list. If only David had heard this sermon. No, what I want you to know is this, is there was so many clues in this situation in David's life that we're going to talk about. And I want you to know this. If David misses the clues, you and I miss them too. Any person in this room is capable of living the crazy life at any moment, any day. It's capable of happening to both you and I. So today I want you to do this. This morning, think this way. It would be very easy for you to right now try to decide whether your neighbor is crazy or not. I will answer that question for you. Your neighbor is most likely crazy. Let's just get that out of the way. Here's the real deal. This morning, as best as you can, whatever's possible for you, turn your eyes in upon yourself. Because really the question that we need to deal with individually is this, is am I living the crazy life? Because it is catastrophic what it causes, both to you and everyone around you. All right, I'm sorry that I don't have the slides up there for you with cute pictures and stuff, but I have great excuses. Yeah, success leaves clues, guys. So what it is this. If you want to write somewhere, there's 8 things. In the end, there'll be about 10 things that you just need to write down. But what I want to give you this morning is this. The 8 clues that you might be crazy. All right? 8 clues that you might be crazy. The first one is this, and we've kind of already talked about it, but we'll get very specific on this. And we're going to talk about David and his incident with Bathsheba. All right? The crazy life. Clue number 1 that you might be crazy is the crazy life most of the time, and I do mean most of the time, if not all the time, has an innocent beginning. Let's start with 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 2. It reads like this. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. All right, let's examine this just a bit. You know, you can't really fault David because what was he doing? He was taking a walk on the roof of the palace, of the castle. I don't know about you, but I get on the roof of my house often. Not at all. It must have been easy access. What I really am wondering is why is David going to bed in the evening? That's odd to me. But he wakes up, and I want to say, David, it's no surprise. I've tried to go to bed in the evening several times, and it never works. Okay, so he's up. And he's up on the palace roof. I'm thinking this. What you don't know, because it's not said in those verses, is the army is off at war for one of the first times ever. David stayed home, and he's got to be bored, because with all the boys gone, there's no poker nights, there's no video game nights, And so he's sitting there, and he's thinking, And it might have actually been a truthful, heartfelt tug of war going on in his life of, I should really be out there with them. So he gets up to the rooftop, and I'm willing to even bet money that while he's walking the rooftop, he's not thinking, gosh, I really hope there's some naked woman on the rooftop overway. He's thinking about whatever's troubling him. And he happens to look up, and just so happens Bathsheba is bathing a few rooftops over. The unfortunate thing is she was not ugly. I don't know. I'm just saying ugly might have helped. Just saying. Seriously. All right. So what I want you to know, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is pretty innocent. Here's a guy that's dealing with everyday life stuff like you and I do. It's a place, time kind of thing. He's confronted with something. So this is it. Why is the crazy life so hard to identify? Is because the way it starts is usually so simple and quiet that we don't even see it starting. We totally miss it. Because in that moment, boom, it happens to David. And in that moment, the thought process starts to change of, oh my word, there's a woman bathing on the rooftop over there. Ha 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 ha. Wait a minute, she's not ugly. And then it just gets worse. Are you guys ready for this? Because that's the easy one. And that's the one we usually miss, but we're starting to get to the ones that we can identify, all right? So we're going to go from that to this. You might be crazy if coincidence becomes a hall pass, okay? Think of it this way. I don't know what you did when you were in high school, and I still do this when I go to conferences, when I have to sit like this around a bunch of people and take notes. I don't know about you, but those are about as close as hell on earth for me. So in high school, I would ask for a hall pass to go use the restroom. And the number of times I actually used the restroom was probably about 15%. You know what I'm talking about, right? You act like you never did that. Well, you should have met me. I could have given you so much freedom in your high school years. So this is what you figure. You've got about 10 minutes before the teacher gets suspicious. Take the hall pass, go walk around. I'd run into the people in the wall. Well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just got a hall pass. All right, so the hall pass has come in our culture to mean the symbolic thing of where somehow I get to escape the responsibilities of everybody else. I get to enjoy roaming the halls, and it's all because everyone else has the illusion that if I had stayed, I would have wet my pants. All right? Because that wasn't going to happen. I'm just out in the hall. Okay, so let's think about this. Here is David, and he's actually on the palace rooftop, and he looks over, and we're at number two. Number two in the clues here, and it could have all ended right here for David. All he had to do was this, turn away. But instead, this coincidence became a hall pass. Well, there's no harm in watching and make sure she doesn't slip. You know? But he just had to turn away. And it was over. He can go back to bed and try to go to sleep in the evening, which is another crazy idea, but he could have done it. He didn't turn away. Instead, he just let it keep going. In a moment when he could have took action and went the other direction, he just took the hall pass, symbolic of he got rid of all the responsibility you'd want a normal male human to have, and stared, watched. Clue number 2, missed. You know, it's interesting, St. Augustine wrote about this. He came after David, of course. But in his Confessions, he wrote about how he struggled with the opposite sex and how one day he was walking down the road and he happened to see a woman of interest coming the other way. And the woman waves to him and he turned around and ran. Now, I know you're going, well, how rude. No, St. Augustine at that point was the smartest guy walking the earth. Clue number 1, I got an innocent happening. Clue number 2, I'm out of here. Okay? David didn't see it the same. Too bad he couldn't read St. Augustine's Confessions. It would have been helpful. But we're going to jump to clue number 3. Desire is masked by curiosity and charity. You might be crazy if your desire is masked by curiosity and charity. I want you to think about this for just a moment. Let's read a couple more verses. This is verses 3 and 4 out of chapter 11. And David sent someone over to find out about her. This is Bathsheba. That was really nice of him. He was probably concerned. Okay? The man said, reporting back to David, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent the messengers to go get her. She came to him, and then the simple part is he slept with her. Man, this is not a good Hollywood movie because it happened like that. But what I am going to point out is I'm going to tell you this. David at that point did not communicate with any of the messengers, "Here are my intentions." Instead, he sent him over. "Could you please go find out about that nice young lady about 4 houses down? I believe she's been by herself for months now." So then the messengers go down. They find out and they come back. And the next step is, I guarantee you he didn't say, "Would you go get her because I would like to sleep with her tonight?" I know that's harsh, but that isn't what he said. I'm telling you what he said is this: "Would you go invite Bathsheba to come over for dinner tonight? I'm sure she's lonely and would be nice to have company." How wonderful and nice is David. Now, I know this is a tough one. Gosh, these clues, guys, are going to get more and more fun. But when you look at this one, I want you to take it out of David's realm for just 1 second here. This is an easy one for us to see because it involves a man and a woman who don't belong together. But we do this all the time. We take the desire that we have to get something, and then we figure out how to spin it so that we can get applause for getting it. David, you just might be crazy if you spin things that are wrong to make you look good. Suddenly, you know what? We have something else going on. Clue number 4. Because this did move really quick, and David did sleep with Bathsheba, and she was not his wife. Suddenly, here it is. You might be crazy if suddenly what was once wrong becomes right. I guess I'm going to change that one for you. Let's take out the filter. You definitely are crazy if what was once wrong suddenly becomes right. I've come to refer to this as the crazy switch. And I don't think it's just in my head, but I think it's in everybody's head. It's like a switch in your brain. Because what I want you to notice about David, and I don't think it's just true for David, but I think it's true for any person that walks this earth. From this point on, David doesn't think the same, act the same, do things in the same way, doesn't sit down and work from the same belief system. David, in that moment, becomes a different person. He still looks like David, smells like David, does things like David, but he's not David. He's different. You might know how this works. A wife, a friend, or let's just say spouse, might look at you and say, "I just don't know who you are anymore." Man, that's a clue to crazy. That's a huge clue to crazy. And it's the biggest one. You're at clue number 4, man. It's the biggest one. The unfortunate thing is by the time you hit clue 4, you've usually already done something and it's too late. The switch is on, not because of any other reason other than you've got something to hide now. There's something going on that I can't let anybody know. I want you to think, facts are often overlooked when you're in the middle of crazy. There's things that you no longer think about when that switch, the crazy switch, is flipped. Okay, if success leads clues, and success is a lot of things. You can put that into your personal life, your spiritual life. Success leads to good. Success, we're talking about things that reward your life and reward the others around you, okay? And crazy leads to consequences. I don't care if it's crazy, I'm going to jump off this roof. There's going to be some consequences there, I'm pretty sure. Crazy, I'm going to cheat on my taxes. I don't know if you knew this, but the government is trillions of dollars in debt. There's a good chance they're going to want to know you cheated. Crazy switch. Suddenly we forget that crazy leads to consequences. Consequences lead to regrets, and regrets absolutely steal life from you. But when that switch is hit, I don't know what it is, but suddenly crazy looks like success. You get so confused you can't see it anymore. And the consequences come because in verse number 5, the woman, this is Bathsheba, she conceived and she sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. Clue number 4, what do I do? Do I come clean or do I just try to sweep this under the rug? You know, if it was that I told a white lie, I'm going to lift the rug up, sweep, sweep. No one's ever done that, right? Nah, I didn't think so. But when it comes to there's going to be a child born and the father's at war and has been at war for several months now, the sweeping gets a little bit harder. It gets a little bit harder. But don't worry, because I have clue number 5 for you. Clue number 5 is this. If you have to manipulate someone else's life to make yours okay, you are probably crazy. You're living the crazy life. I want to read to you, I don't want to read it to you, I just want to tell you what happens. This is how David deals with Uriah. Because remember Uriah, this is Bathsheba's husband. He's at war. He's a hero in all rights. He's out conquering for Israel. And David sends for Uriah. He sends a note, and I know what the note says. Because of your fantastic service, you get to come home and spend some time with your wife and family. What he wasn't counting on was this, is Uriah was an honest man. That sure is a problem when you're living the crazy life and you got to deal with honest people. It's kind of funny because when you live the crazy life, all of a sudden honest people are stupid. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah. So anyways, here we're going. Uriah comes home. He comes to the palace. David brings him in and says, Uriah, you've done such a great job. You know what I want you to do? I want you to go home and spend some time with your wife. In fact, I got you a room at the Anniversary Inn. I just thought that would be fun. Thanks for all your great service. We sure appreciate it. Uriah leaves the room, but he goes out and he stays in the courtyard, doesn't go home. The next day he comes back. What's the deal? I got the room for you. It was all set up. What are you doing, Uriah? You should be going home. And Uriah's response was, sir, that would not be fair for me to go home when all these other soldiers are still at war. It just wouldn't be right. And in fact, it's in the manual that I shouldn't go home. Well, that's all right. I want you to stay for a couple more days. And then David has the best plan of all. He invites Uriah back and he gets Uriah drunk. And he says, Uriah, go on home. The unfortunate thing for David is Uriah was so honest that even in a drunken state, he still made honest decisions because he went out into the courtyard, slept with the servants, and he did not go home. This is getting quite difficult because David has to cover something up so his life can be okay. And Uriah is not cooperating. So you know what he does? Pretty simple. Well, Uriah, I'm glad you came back and spent time at the palace. I'm ready to send you back to war. And really, clue 5 is kind of linked to clue 6. Are you ready for clue 6? You might be crazy when your trusted friends are blatant liars. Seriously. You know what's interesting? When you're around someone that's living the crazy life, and let's say they're at clue 6, they usually say things like this when they talk to honest people. You just don't understand. Well, sure they don't, because you're a liar. Liars understand liars. Liars validate liars. I'm just saying. You think that's crazy? Birds of a feather flock together. You become who you hang around. Man, if you're hanging around people that hear your lies and say, oh, dude, I get it, man. You're so right. That is clue number 6. Guess what happens? He sends Uriah back, and he sends Uriah with a note. And on the note, it says, Joab, my trusted general, I need you to put Uriah in the front lines. And when you engage the city to overtake it, I want you to strategically place him where the heaviest battle is. And then I want you to pull everybody back but Uriah. Man, I'm thinking if Joab, the general, should look at that and say, what is going on here? Lucky for David, Joab was a liar too. Because guess what happens? They go to war. He pulls everybody back. Uriah dies, and then Joab sends a letter back. And he comes back, and the messenger reports to David, and the messenger says, Uriah, well, he starts with this. He says, good news is we're winning this war. We're going to overtake the city, but we have lost several of your men, including the Hittite Uriah. And David responds, but hey, we're getting to that one. In this point, guess what happens? In 15 and 16, he put Uriah out front where the fighting was fiercest, and he withdrew him so that he would be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he did put Uriah in that place, and he knew the strongest defenders were, and Uriah did in fact die. All right, we're going from 6. If you're hanging out with liars, there's a good chance you might be crazy, but here you go. Here's clue number 7. You rationalize the pain and loss you cause another as necessary for the greater good. Greater good being this. You remember my whole belief system's changed by now. The crazy switch has been flipped. And so now this is what I'm thinking. Well, that's unfortunate because David actually believed this. It was just necessary for these guys to die for us to win the war. It was convenient that he could now lump this one murder into a greater thing of this is just the price of war. So the messenger did come back, reports to David that everything that had happened, that Uriah had died. And David's response is, messenger, please tell Joab that this is not his fault. This is just the cost of war. That is all it is. That's all it is. Bathsheba finds out her husband dies. And in that happens, when Uriah's wife, this is verse 26, when Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. And after the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David did had displeased the Lord. There's a little filter right there. Because I've kind of seen it this way. As a parent, you might get this. Okay? I just don't see God in heaven looking down going, David, I am just so displeased with you. This is beyond belt. I see God is so angry. I don't know why we have a problem with an angry God right here. I don't see any problem with it at all. Why is it a surprise to us that God would be angry when we not only abuse the freedoms he gives us and the love he gives us, but when we ruin it for others too? So there is this situation. Bathsheba, we're at 7, guys. We're going to 8 here. Bathsheba believes her husband is dead. This is the part that drives me the most crazy. This is covered up. And as you read through it in Scripture, you're going to see it's a huge cover-up. It's the Watergate of Israel, only it involves a lot of stuff. It's a huge cover-up. So David invites Bathsheba into his castle. I want you to know what was happening at the coffee shops and the hair salons. That David is such a wonderful man. Did you see what he did? Uriah died and he took Bathsheba in, that poor thing. Oh, my goodness. Here's number 8. You might be crazy when you believe God accepts and looks past your sin. And this whole forgiveness things, this whole idea of forgiveness is replaced by a life of pretending. You have got to see the level of pretending here that David was living. Because what people were saying in the coffee shops, what people were saying at this hair salons, what people were saying at church, not that gossip ever happens at churches, but what was happening was David is so great. It's a cover-up. Here's what happened. David actually started to believe it. There became a point in his life where he no longer attached his life to the horrible things he did and could now live as if it was at best, at worst, it probably was just an elephant in the room. The elephant he knew about and hoped no one would bring up. And really, it was pretty safe. He just had to keep an eye on Joab, the general. Because you know what liars do? When they need something, suddenly they're going to hurt you. So here we are. We're at all of those clues, and David missed them all. Now, I want you to remember one thing. Chances are pretty good, both statistically and everything else, that someone in this room is living the crazy life at some point. And some of these clues have happened for you in your life, if not all 8 of them. In fact, there's a chance someone is living here, living crazy, and pretending that crazy is good. I'm about ready to show you the scariest part. What does God do with someone that's living the crazy life? He sends somebody called Nathan. I want you to hear what Nathan says to David. We're jumping over to chapter 12. This is how God deals with the crazy life. I'm just going to read it to you. It's the first 10 verses. Now the Lord sent Nathan to David, and when he came out to him, he said, there were 2 men in a certain town. This little story. One rich, the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he bought. He raised it and grew it up with him and his children. He shared his food, drank from his cup, and the lamb slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the lamb that belonged to the traveler who had come to him and prepared it for the meal. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. Isn't that interesting? Hey, there's a whole lot of pretending going on here. I'm just saying. Whole lot of pretending going on here. I don't know if you caught, let's just reframe the whole story here. Basically, the rich man took all that the poor man had and took everything from him. Then Nathan said to David, oh, wait, you are this man. This is what the Lord God of Israel says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house to you, and I gave master's wives into your arms. This was a different day, so he did have wives. It wasn't one of those crazy, sister wives episodes. I gave you the houses of Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Did you catch that? I just want to remind you, God is for you here. He's not against you. Did you hear those words? David, I had more for you if you needed more. What is up? Let's go on, though. Verse 9. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing this evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. Now, I want you to catch this right here. The biggest points out of all of that are this, is I don't care how long you want to pretend, but pretending gets harder and harder and harder. You can't pretend forever. I guarantee you at some point, the truth will be exposed. And most likely it's going to be someone like a Nathan who's going to come to you and say, hey, this is you. And either your pretending is going to go to a whole nother level and you literally are going to end up in some madhouse, or you're going to have to be honest and take it. But here's what I want you to know. David went through all 8 of these clues. David went through all of them. And because of this, and because of his coming to a life of pretending, he is going to have to deal with consequences for the rest of his life. The rest of his life. God didn't come down and say, hey, I've been waiting for this opportunity to bring the sword, which is to make sure that your house is in turmoil forever now, David. God is coming and saying, I gave you everything and I had more for you, and you threw it all away, and now you've given yourself all of these consequences that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. And if you keep reading, David gets to die with some blessings, but guess what he has a lot of? Regret. The son that Bathsheba bore dies. He has another son that goes on and repeats the same sins that David did, only at a whole nother level of public humility. Not humility, horrifity. It was terrible. It was just terrible. David's life from this day forward was full of consequences because he ignored the clues. This is what David never thought of when he was pretending. And let's take crazy out of it. Sin hurts people. Sin hurts people. And when you're living crazy, you don't even know who your sin hurts. Do you want to know something else? Sin hurts people that don't even live yet. Sin is serious. So if you're here living the crazy life this morning, we went through the clues, and I'm pretty sure you know if you are. There's one message that God has for you today. It's pretty simple. Stop it! Just stop it! Why are you doing this? Why would you choose to believe that a life of sin has more to offer for you than a God of the universe? Why? Why would you do that? Why would you choose to live with these consequences for the rest of your life? They're not just affecting you and those that you really do love right now. They're affecting people who don't even live yet. And I'm guaranteeing you the span of it, I'm really sorry. I am so sorry. That is probably the most innocent person in the room, and I upset her. Yes. Greater good, thank you. It was a necessary thing, guys. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though. The span of sin is huge, and we're blind to it. What I'm willing to bet is this. Let's just reverse it for a few minutes, and we're almost done. You probably have been around somebody living the crazy life. Probably have. You know the pain that another crazy person's sin causes. You felt it, you know it. Why would you ever choose to be that person in reverse and cause pain for others? The pain that sin causes is real. And it's real for the others around you, but it's very real for you as well. As we close up today, I'm just going to ask for a few moments. Do you mind just bowing your head with me? Because these last couple minutes are just about you and your relationship with God. Hey, we've been through these clues, and maybe one or two of them, or if not, many of them ring true for a situation in your life. I mean, this can be about simple things. It can be about big things. But for some reason, in our humanness, we like to measure big sins, small sins. But in this moment, you need to change that, because sin is sin. There's no big and small scale. Sin does the same thing, no matter what it is. And we might even want to say there's big crazy, little crazy. Man, crazy is crazy. The switch is the switch. Pretending is pretending. Let's go back to the question we started with. Am I living the crazy life? Man, there's clues. There's so many clues. Am I living the crazy life? If you are, for the first time maybe, think about this. Besides myself, who am I hurting right now? Sin hurts people. you ready to stop it? Are you ready to stop it? Because if you're living the crazy life right now, you're not without hope. Because what you need to know is the same God that had everything for you before you became crazy is the same God who's here today that's ready for you to leave the crazy life and be your help, your forgiver, your friend, your advisor to live the blessed life. As Jesus said it best, he didn't come to steal, kill, and destroy and make everything crazy. He came that you might have life and have it abundant. If you're ready to stop it, just a couple things. Let's start with this. In your own words, just repeat a prayer like this in your head. God, I am so sorry. I've been living the crazy life. I have sin in my life that I've been pretending isn't there. And I want to change that. I understand, God, that I am going to need your help to change that because it's become so easy to pretend. So at this point, Lord, I am asking you to forgive me because I am willing to repent, to turn and leave behind this crazy life, this sin-filled life, that I might know and have life abundant with you. And if that's your heart, if that's your prayer, this is what you need to know right now. Jesus is more than able to get you past the crazy life. He will bring healing, he will bring new, and he will restore. Here's the last part. You're going to have to do some work. You're just going to have to do some work. Your sin hurt people. You're going to have to apologize. You're going to have to make those relationships as right as you can. And you're going to have to. You're going to have to find somebody that you trust. It's honest, because only liars understand liars. You need to find someone that's honest to hold you accountable. Because once you've been pretending, it's like a magnet that wants to pull you back. And you're going to need someone's help to help you stay centered on Jesus and centered on a successful, family, spiritual, honest life. Jesus, I thank you that you are a God that is for us and that everything you have for us is so much more than we can imagine. And Lord, I know that there's an enemy that roams this earth, and I don't totally understand how it all works, except for I know he's always bringing crazy. He's always bringing lies, and he always wants me to pretend and believe that there are some things better than what you have for me. But I'm reminded this morning, God, that there is nothing better than what you have for me. There's nothing better than the blessings you've already surrounded me with. God, I pray that you would give me the courage, the strength, and the wisdom and the people around me, that my path would be straight, that the distractions would be minimal, my wisdom would be huge, and my strength would be never ending because of my faith and trust in you. Whatever kind of crazy switches in my head, God, I am trusting that you're switching it for me right now. No longer is my life going to be based on a belief system of pretend. But from this point forward, I will be a follower of you. This is going to be a couple minutes, just seconds of silence right here. Because I believe God does speak to us. His Spirit is present, man. He speaks to us individually. And it may just be a moment of peace for you where you can sit in his presence, or there may be something really important. Just a few seconds. We're going to be silent and we're going to be done. In this moment, though, God, open our mind, our ears, that we'd hear you and know you're present.